Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our program this afternoon, Accidental American from Proud Ethiopian to Naturalized USCN by our author, Dr. Jonas Kefle. I'd like to invite Dr. Lanisa Kitchener to start off our program and introduce our division to everyone. Dr. Kitchener.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the African and Middle Eastern Division of the Library of Congress. My name is Dr. Lanisa Kitchener, and I have the very high privilege of serving as chief of what I believe to be one of the most remarkable arms of the library, the African and Middle Eastern Division. As some of you may know, the African and Middle Eastern Division of the Library of Congress is the entry point to the Middle East, the Near East, Hebraica, and African studies at the library. We represent 78 countries spanning spanning from the Caucasus through to Central Asia, the Maghreb, and the southern tip of Africa. Today's program promises to be wonderfully delightful. It is embodying the true essence of what we achieve in our division, and that is outreach and engagement through wonderfully diverse thoughts and perspectives. We have with us to host today's program our very own Fentahun Taruna. Fenta is a member of our Hebraic section, which counts in its collections more than 280,000 books, manuscripts, and items for review and examination. Fenta is a tremendous contribution and partner in the African and Middle Eastern Division, and it is a wonderful delight that he has brought today's program with us today, featuring Dr. Jonas Kefle. I'm grateful to each and every one of you for joining in today's program, and I do hope that you will enjoy the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lanisa Kitchener, for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin my introduction with admiration and appreciation of Dr. Jonas Kefle for the effort he put into the production of this unique compendium, an autobiography of himself. Dr. Jonas and I knew each other for many years as immigrants and as students at Harvard University, and he has been coming to the Library of Congress for consultation every now and then, but little did I know about his intentions to write such a voluminous book of 630 pages. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Jonas on his success. Dr. Jonas Kefle was born and raised in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He received his elementary education in Our Lady of Perpetual Help School and attended Tafari Mokonan High School in Addis Ababa. During the military rule in Ethiopia, Jonas was forced to flee Ethiopia and sought refuge in Djibouti, a French colony at the time. In 1977, he moved to Paris, where he was granted a political asylum. During the 1977-78 academic year, Jonas completed his baccalaureate at the Paris Diderot University. He came to the United States in 1979 as a political refugee and settled in the Washington area. In America, Jonas pursued his studies and earned a BA in economics in 1983 and a master's degree in economics in 1986. While a graduate student, he worked as a teaching assistant in the Department of Social Sciences and then as a graduate research fellow in the economics department of Howard University. He also took a paid internship position as a statistical analyst at the District of Columbia Government Department of Human Services. In January 1990, Jonas joined the U.S. Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics, as an economist while he was a doctoral candidate. Jonas received his PhD in economics in 1992 from Howard University. In 1999, Dr. Jonas was detailed from the U.S. Department of Labor to the Department of State and served in the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs. He was then deployed to Haiti to serve as the first labor attaché in the American Embassy in Port-au-Prince until December 2001. In Haiti, he oversaw the implementation of $2 million projects funded by the U.S. government and carried out by the UN International Labour Office. He also served as a member of the International Elections Observers Team and monitored Haiti's 2000 national elections. Upon completing his assignment, he received the Department of State's Meritorious Honor Award for outstanding contributions. Between 2007 and 2014, he served as an adjunct professor of economics at the Frederick Community College in Frederick, Maryland, and the Pennsylvania State University in York, Pennsylvania. He has also served as Maryland Governor's Commissioner for African Affairs and as an advisor to the UNESCO Center for Peace and as a board member of civic organizations such as the Frederick County Literary or Literacy Council. Presently, Dr. Jonas heads Global Trade and Development Consulting, a company he founded in 2012. In addition to English, Dr. Kefle speaks French, Amharic, and Haitian Creole. Dr. Kefle is the author of numerous articles and was the business editor of Ethiopian Business and Industry Report and the editor of Ethiopian Business. Before I leave the floor to Dr. Jonas, there are a couple of announcements and disclaimers to make. This forum does not entertain discussions of political nature. Please cooperate not to make comments or ask on current political issues, and I thank you for your understanding. This event is recorded for a subsequent broadcast for the library's webcast, YouTube page, and Facebook page. There will be a question and answer period after the presentation in which attendees are encouraged to participate. But please be advised that your name will be recorded and later broadcast as part of this event. By participating in the question and answer period, you are consenting to the library's possible reproduction and transmission of your remarks. Finally, please know that you can ask questions using the chat box, and you may begin to use it now. Thank you. I now invite Dr. Jonas to take over.
Thank you, Ponta. And thank you, Dr. Lisa and Joanne, for putting this together. And I'm indebted to the Library of Congress because, as Ponta mentioned, I have done most of my research work at the library, in addition to another library, Wamazaka, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Now, the book Accidental American is voluminous, as I mentioned, and the reason is because I had to tell a long story, my own personal story, and the story of my country. Because in my view, the two are inseparably intertwined. Now, the book contains my autobiography and the story of my country as I understand it. It consists of my childhood memories, actual mental and paper notes kept over several years, and research materials on Ethiopian history and some of its political economy. Now, I divided the contents into 7 major parts for the purpose of this presentation. Part 1 is my childhood story. Part 2 would be the introduction to my country, Ethiopia. Part 3 would be the story of the Ethiopian student movement, in which I was a part of to some degree. Part 4 is the story of Ethiopia after the monarchy. And part 5 would be the downfall of the military government and the triumph of ethno-nationalism in Ethiopia. And then part 6 would come back to my life, and I will discuss my time in exile in Djibouti and France. Part 7 would look at my being an accidental American, the title of the book. So since I have a long story to tell, let me start with the slide of my grandpa. And okay, this is my grandpa, Kanyasmach Kabede Chadet. I was born and raised in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia, in the community famously known as Kabana Safar, where my grandfather had briefly settled earlier in the 20th century before he moved into the eastern province of Hararge. Now, my parents came from Hararge. They were born there after they were married at early age. And in Addis, I was the third of their 9 children. My father, Kafle Kabede, was a lifelong civil servant. He worked at the Ministry of Interior and a popular community leader also in Amharic, Durudanya in Kabana. Now, if you can bring my mother, next slide. My mother, Roman, was a homemaker who properly brought up 8 children in a country where women carry the heavier load of raising children. My schooling began at age 4 at a local priest school, Kestamratrit, where a group of kids sat on a mat and learned Hahu, ABCD, reading the Amharic alphabet loud. After mastering the lesson in ABCD and the Book of Psalms, Dawit, I graduated from my traditional priest school and went on to the Kidana Merit KMS school at age 5. I started elementary school, and the sisters of the Ethiopian Catholic Church, whom we address simply as sisters, they were great and strict disciplinarians, and they had left a strong impression on me that I still feel the presence of Sister Ambrosia, Georgia, and Fausta whenever I write something, so I won't make a spelling mistake. Next slide. At the completion of grade 6, I passed the national exam, known as the ministry. Next slide. And was placed at the Teferi Makon School for junior and high school studies. This is me in 6th grade with my classmate that I never forget. Next slide. Junior high is memorable. The high school I went through was Teferi Makon School, TMS. It was memorable for its academic rigor. Many times I feel that everything I needed to know in life, I learned it in grade 7. At TMS, the teachers were mainly Canadian Jesuits. We also had American teachers who came to our school through the Peace Corps program, thanks to President John F. Kennedy in the 1960s. Senior high school at TMS was a little bit different. It was different because it marked the beginning of my political awareness. In my case, this was because of one eccentric geography teacher, an Ethiopian fresh out of Haile Selassie I University, assigned to teach us geography. In addition to geography, however, he succeeded more in planting the seeds of Marxist political ideas in our minds. In my 10th and 11th grades, many of my classmates and I were already politicized. Next slide. Now, Ethiopia is known as a museum of peoples. Many writers characterize it as an island of Christianity and the home of Muslim population, any Muslim population, as a land of Semitic speakers, but also inhabited by Cushitic and other non-Semitic speakers. It is a nation whose history is written in books as ancient as the Old Testament. Ethiopia is also considered the cradle of humanity. If you remember, in 1974, Lucy was discovered, a 3.2 million year old fossil remains, considered to be the ancestor of all humans. And Ethiopia also is a home of people with rich and diverse ethnic heritage. It is a melting pot of over 80 ethnic groups, including the Oromo, the Amhara, Somali, the Tigrayan, the Sidama, the Gurage, the Walaita, the Hadia, the Afar, the Gamo, and many more. Ethiopia, after generations of social movements and intermarriage, people have lived together and mixed with each other. Ethiopians today can correctly label ourselves as Ethiopians, but not as a pure Amhara or Oromo, Gurage, Sidama, or any of the multitude of ethnic groups in the country. By contrast, prior to the latter part of the 19th century, Ethiopia consisted of fragmented and mutually hostile regions ruled by local warlords, continuously feuding for legitimacy. That was known as the era of princes. And as you know, as you Ethiopians know, the most notable warlords were Ras Ali of the Begem Simen, the Jazmat Hure, Tigray, and King Sahle Selassie of Shaw. United Ethiopia, as we know it today, is a product of a gradual integration of different regions that were not viable to become separate states on their own. It took more than a century of courageous effort to build a semblance of a unified country. Ethiopians, led by great leaders, beginning with Emperor Theodorus II, paid hefty prices to unify the nation. Emperor Theodorus originated in the former province of Begemdre and Simen and brought Shawa, Wello, Gojam, and Tigray under the Ethiopian fault. The emperor got into a high-profile dispute with the Queen of England, Victoria, at the time, which could not be peacefully resolved. His last fight was with the British Expeditionary Force at the Battle of Magdala, and there he committed suicide on April 13, 1868, to avoid defeat and humiliation by colonial British. His legacy was carried by subsequent rulers. Now, Emperor Johannes followed him, and one of the unfulfilled dreams of Emperor Theodorus was to drive out colonial powers who occupied the Red Sea coast in the north of Ethiopia. Now his successor, with his commander, Alula Banagar, fulfilled that dream. They forced the intruding Ottomans and Egyptians and later Italians out of the Red Sea coast and unified today's Eritrea, still at the top of the northern province, with Ethiopia. And it took three crucial battles to do that. The Battle of Gundet, the Battle of Gura, and finally the Battle of Dogali to remove the Italian contingent that encroached in Ethiopia's domain. So Governor Alula Banakia administered Mermelash, that was the name of Eritrea before it was renamed. Italy simply renamed it. But some European historians say Italy found Eritrea, and that's not true. Italy was the 14th province of Ethiopia back then. Back then it wasn't 14 yet, but later it became 14. Then Emperor Johannes did not live long. He was killed at the Battle of Matama, and following him was Menelik II. Now, during the transition between the two emperors, Italy dropped Eritrea and put it under its control for a while. When Emperor Menelik came to the scene, the scramble for Africa, what we know as the scramble for Africa, was raging among colonial powers. Keenly aware of the Europeans' aims to reach further into Ethiopia's domain, Menelik's unmistakable message to European colonialists in 1891 was that he did not intend to be an indifferent spectator when colonizers came from long distances to scoundrel Africa. So he became the founder of contemporary Ethiopia in partnership with the country's founding mother, which I should mention, Empress Taitu. Empress Taitu's mark on Ethiopian history is monumental. Not only she founded present-day Addis Ababa, but she also came up with that name. So Addis Ababa is what she called the capital city for the first time, and the name stuck. In 1889, Menelik signed a treaty with Italy. That treaty was meant to limit Italy's presence in the area around the Red Sea coast. But Italy tried to trick Menelik into giving up Ethiopia's independence through this treaty. The treaty is named the Uchali Treaty. What happened was the Amharic version of the treaty stated that Ethiopia may consult with Italy on foreign policy matters, but the Italian version stipulated that Ethiopia must consult with Italy in the conduct of its foreign policy. This was a crime against Ethiopia's independence and had to be punished, and Menelik punished Italy at the Battle of Adwa in 1896. Following Adwa, all colonial powers stopped. Following Adwa, all colonial powers stopped challenging Menelik's expansion southward. Menelik doubled Ethiopia's domain. In the diplomatic arena, Menelik signed the first treaty of commerce with America. That was with Teddy Roosevelt on December 27, 1903. Menelik made a great stride in many affairs, which I can't go through in this presentation, until he suffered a stroke in 1908. Succeeding Menelik was Haile Selassie, who reigned over Ethiopia until 1974. Haile Selassie, Emperor Haile Selassie I, transformed the traditional system of provincial government into a modern system of salaried administrators. He had to work very hard around the resistance of the traditional nobility. Conservative nobles were not happy with the reform that he was making, but in any case, he managed to outlaw slavery in the early 1920s. He gained membership at the League of Nations in 1923, and he promulgated the first constitution in 1931. Then Italy was thinking about revenge, and Mussolini's Italy invaded Ethiopia in 1936. On October 3, 1934, Mussolini ordered his troops into Ethiopia through the Eritrean frontier. Now, the worst legacy of the 5-year Italian occupation is planting the seeds of ethnic and religious animosity among the Ethiopians, which is dogging the country to this day, I think. They singled out the Amhara and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church as oppressors and pitted Ethiopians against each other. Now, during Italy's unstable 5-year occupation, the emperor went into exile. While in exile, he addressed the League of Nations. In that address, he predicted that fascist Italy would not stop in Ethiopia. And as it turned out, it created an alliance with Hitler and attacked the Western Europe and the rest of civilization. Ethiopians during that time resorted to guerrilla warfare. And the international community had varying reactions to the Italian war. The Vatican was complicit. The US government was officially neutral, but in opposition to official American position, African Americans stood in solidarity with Ethiopians. Here in the book, I paid special tribute to Colonel John Robinson, a notable African American who contributed to Ethiopia's war effort against Italy. After Mussolini and Hitler directly attacked France and the rest of Western Europe, Britain sided with Ethiopia against Italy. Ethiopia became victorious in May 1941, and on May 5, 1941, 5 years after he left, the emperor came back to Addis Ababa. At this point, the British colonial commanders were tempted to treat Ethiopia as an occupied ex-enemy territory, which should remain under British administration. But Emperor Haile Selassie, brought a team together. Aklido Haptold, Lorenzo Tazaz, John Spencer, the American Everett Colson, and capable technocrats in law and economics. And they arranged a meeting with FDR, Franklin Roosevelt. Roosevelt and Haile Selassie met in Egypt after the Yalta Conference. And after that meeting, America and Ethiopia were stronger allies. And in the remainder of the 1940s and 1950s, the emperor and his team systematically achieved the restoration of lost territories. And these included Eritrea from Italy. So Eritrea was back. Afambo in the Afar region from France, and Gambella from Britain. So US and Ethiopia also reestablished diplomatic relations. The embassy at Entoto was opened in 1943. And Ethiopia was also the beneficiary of President Harry Truman's Point 4 program. Learning from what happened in the earlier war, Haile Selassie revitalized the military. He created a modern military this time. And in 1950, he deployed what we call the Kanyo Battalion to fight alongside American forces led by General Douglas MacArthur to safeguard democracy in South Korea. And later he dispatched another brigade, this time the Tekel Brigade, to Congo to fight alongside United Nations forces to preserve the territorial integrity of the country by preventing the secession of Katanga. He also built Ethiopia's Air Force, the Ethiopian Airlines, and diplomatically he founded the OAU with other African leaders, the Organization of African Unity. Next slide. Oh, okay. Ethiopia, during when I was growing up, during Haile Selassie, Ethiopia looked like this with 14 provinces. And as you could see, Eritrea was the 14th province. And that's all we have. Before 1994, this was the map of Ethiopia. Can we have next slide? Now, post-war, the emperor expanded education. And unlike the pre-war students, you should not, most of the students were killed by the Italians during the Italian occupation. And there were not many educated students, but after the emperor founded in 1951 the University College of Addis Ababa, many students began to attend, and Ethiopia started producing its human resources. But unlike the pre-war students who were grateful and loyal to the emperor, the students of the 1960s were disgruntled with the system and considered the monarchy as an obstacle to social progress. In 1960, they came out in support of an attempted coup d'etat by his imperial bodyguard. In 1965, protest demonstrations became like rituals. By 1967, the university students in Addis formed what is popularly known as UZWA, the University Students' Union, of Addis Ababa. 1969, the student adopted a view, a Marxist view, more specifically a Leninist view of rights of nationalities. They made a wild claim that Ethiopia was not a nation, but just a collection of nationalities dominated by the cultures of just two ethnic groups, the Tigray and the Amhara. Now, in this year, 1969, a student leader at Laon was killed. And at this point, Ethiopian university students mostly started leaving the country and organizing in North America, Europe, and other countries. And they found eventually two political organizations. And the first one was the All Ethiopia Socialist Movement in Amharic Mason, Mala Ethiopia Socialist Nikanake. The second one was the EPRP. Mason was formed in 1968, and EPRP was founded in April 1972, the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Party in Amharic, IHAPA, Ethiopia Abiyotari Party. In 1974, revolution or social uprising broke out in Ethiopia. On September 12, 1974, soldiers dethroned Emperor Haile Selassie, replacing him with military government. On that same day, soldiers outlawed student union or any other group activism. Well, next slide, please. By 1975, this is part 4 now, the post-monarchy Ethiopia. Okay. By 1975, the major role players of the revolution were EPRP, Mason, and the military government. Do we have that slide? The major players of now. So those were the major players. In the periphery, the ELF, the Eritrean Liberation Front, the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, the TPLF, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, the OLF, the Oromo Liberation Front, and other ethno-nationalist movements were also active. Now, as an 11th grader, I was an 11th grader at the time. I was an early sympathizer of the EPRP. So, 1975, the military government came up with a scheme designed partly to get senior high school and university students out of major cities. As you can see, this is our picture when we get ready to be deployed to the countryside as part of the campaign. We grudgingly agreed to serve in the countryside in Etket Behevrat, the Development through Cooperation campaign. 60,000 students, teachers, and soldiers participated in this campaign. Next slide. And this was me in the campaign headquarters. And I was deployed in the Afar region. That was the Danakil Desert, located along the Awash River Delta near the border of Djibouti. As the name of the city was Asaita. Next slide. Now, this was what I meant. These were the contenders of the revolution in 1974 and beyond, throughout at the early stages of the military government. Now, the campaign that we went through, in my case, was interrupted. The first campaign was interrupted when the Sultan Ali Mira refused to recognize the legitimacy of the military government and went on a violent rebellion. We came under fire, and all-out fighting broke out. The incident had a huge impact on me personally. That was the first time I found myself in the middle of a firefight, and my first encounter with casualties, with scattered dead bodies and limbs. And we were evacuated at the end of the fighting. After that, I was reassigned to serve in the capital city, Addis Ababa. After a couple of months of work, we students clashed with the government and we staged a work stoppage. One early morning, however, about 600 of us were rounded up in the middle of the night while we were sleeping in our dorms at the university campus. Now labeled as counter-revolutionaries, we were detained in a military camp, in Poleta military training camp, for 33 days, marked by beatings each day, malnourishment, we didn't have enough to eat, very crowded quarter, we didn't have enough area to sleep. We were shaved and we suffered unspeakable degradation during that time, even though it looked short. It was too long, the longest 33 days of my life. Now, next slide, please. After I was freed from this horrible incarceration, I joined the EPRP formally at the lowest level and formed a clandestine cell and a study circle. We met several times a week and read party organs and leftist books while we engaged in Marxist lessons. For a short period in Ethiopia in 1976, the military government allowed freedom of the press in the country, and ideological debates raged between EPRP and MISA. Newspaper and magazines flourished, and the major nationalist organizations engaged in bitter public feuds. Now, initially, both parties called for a socialist revolution led by a provisional people's government, but later their views diverged. And some of the highlights, as I put them together now, include, on Mason's side, they said that time is not ripe for a proletarian-led revolution. On the EPRP side, time is ripe for a socialist revolution. On Mason's side, Ethiopians are not ready for unlimited democracy, therefore democracy should be bounded. On the EPRP side, people are ready for democracy, you should have unbounded democracy. Mason said objective conditions exist, subjective conditions did not, and EPRP claimed that both objective and subjective conditions for change existed. Finally, Mason offered critical support to the military regime and decided to work with it. EPRP said no way, and the fascist government, according to EPRP, must go immediately. Mason renounced PPG, the Provisional People's Government, and eventually became part of the government. EPRP continued to resist and continued its call for PPG. Soon after, the temporary press freedom was revoked, and then a line was drawn in the sand. Derg, or the military government, and Mason on one side, EPRP on the other side, became mortal enemies. February 1977, Colonel Mengistu emerged as a strongman, assassinating his moderate and educated colleagues, a brazen palace coup d'etat. EPRP began soon after armed urban and rural warfare, while Derg and Mason reigned the Red Terror on EPRP. What resulted was a mutual destruction and the demise of Ethiopia's cream of the crop. Estimated 30,000 to 750,000 young men and women, whom I call the cream of the crop, perished in that conflict. One of the victims was my cousin, Asaf Ramamo, who was also my soulmate, and one of my four-member EPRP staff. He was brutally murdered, sprayed by machine gun bullets, and soon after, Derg soldiers and Mason cadres broke into the office of my youth association in Kapana, and I sort of felt that I became one of the targets. After that, my options were either to kill while resisting arrest, or to die, or to risk imprisonment and torture, or to flee the country. And I chose the last option. Next slide. Now, fast forward, after 17 years of military dictatorship, Ethiopians had had enough. Derg's own generals rebelled and stopped fighting with liberation fronts throughout the country. And anyone who would remove the Derg was welcome. And by this time, the nationalist groups, the EPRP, Mason, and other nationalist groups were decimated. Unfortunately, they were gone, and this cleared the way for the triumph of ethno-nationalist groups who ruled the country for 27 years. And the country, after those 27 years, looks much different today than it looked earlier. Next slide, please. After I decided to flee my own country, I made you should read this in the book, but I made an unforgettable train ride to the border. It was a dangerous travel with no passport, no luggage, and no money, but I made it. I stayed 4 months in Djibouti, then a little over 2 years in France. Now, during that time, I found time to reflect on what transpired and why was I displaced from my country. And my conclusion was that the leaders of Ethiopia's political organizations had not been able to develop a culture of tolerance and an art of compromise. They never took the time to develop skills of managing differences peacefully in a democratic manner. And they never realized that they should coexist and live with one another and establish a system of mutual security and a system of successive democratic elections. And learning from the past, I'm sure the new generation of leaders would learn from our mistakes. My coming to America and becoming a citizen was not planned. I stumbled into it through virtual serendipity. It was accidental and a confluence of random factors. The breakout of the 1974 revolution, the students' involvement in party politics that brought us in collision course with military dictatorship. And one other factor is the 1977 reversal of superpower realignment, where Somalia switched from Soviet Union to the United States sphere of influence, and Ethiopia, under the military government, left America's friendship and went to the Soviet Union. And because of that, well, at the end of the Vietnam War, the US passed the Indochina Migration and Refugee Assistance Act in 1978. And President Jimmy Carter extended the program to grant political asylum to Ethiopian refugees who left their country after the 1974 revolution. So I qualified with this requirement, and I happened to be in the right place at the right time and benefited from this program run by the U.S. Catholic Conference, and I thank them. Next slide. In America, once I'm in America, to be or not to be a citizen was not an easy decision. My pride in Ethiopianness weighed heavily on me, and I resisted the idea for years. At the close of the 1980s, I found myself in America on the verge of completing my university studies. My eyes were curiously opened to a cherished concept in the American popular media and culture, and that was the pursuit of the American dream. This concept emanated from, of course, the Declaration of Independence that declared all men are created equal and have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think that's all we need. That's what we need in all countries. The highlights of my career. I joined the Department of Labor in 1990, and that's a very respected agency, and my task was to help in the occupational safety and health statistics, and this was the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970 passed by Congress, and we were fulfilling that the task for that requirement. We tabulated the job-related injuries and illnesses each year by state and industry. And we did some other technical work, statistical, mathematical work, and the statistical method. You all can read about that in the book. In the Department of Labor, what else I did was I was a member of the union. I joined the union, the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 12, and I was a steward. I was appointed a steward and served for 5 years. Next slide. Now, after that, I was slated, I joined the State Department as a Foreign Service officer after I was detailed to the State Department from the Department of Labor. You can read about what we have done, but next slide. At the end of it, I received the Meritorious Honor Award, one of the prestigious awards in the State Department. But let me say something about Haiti. I love Haiti, and when I was in Haiti, I learned Creole, as Panta mentioned in the introduction, at the Foreign Service Institute before I was deployed. And the Haitians use proverbs and metaphors in their language, in Creole, and some of which originated in the island, some of which has its African roots. My favorite one, let me give you one. There are many in the book. My favorite one was, I'm speaking Creole now, Mene koulebla l'école pa anyan, mais c'est fel chita qui dit. What that means is taking a snake to school is easy. It is making it sit and learn what is difficult. Of course, you're not talking about snakes. Next slide, please. Okay, at the conclusion of my federal service, this was my last evaluation, supervisory evaluation. Usually I get highly effective and exemplary. This one, the last one, was exemplary. Next slide, please. Then Governor Martin O'Malley of Maryland appointed me to serve as Commissioner of African Affairs, which I did. Next slide. Next slide. This is Governor O'Malley. And then I tried local politics. I ran for Board of Education, and I did a good campaign. I was endorsed by the Teachers Union. This is from the local paper at the time. Next slide. And in national presidential elections, I served as Maryland's official delegation to Hillary Clinton's campaign in the Iowa caucuses in 2008. And back then I thought America was ready for its first female president, but it didn't happen that time. Hopefully it will happen very soon. Next slide. Okay, now, if you're wondering what I plan in the future, let me read about that from page 580 of the book. In that book, it's a short passage. When I boarded a train to flee from my own country in November 1976, the train was passing through the countryside, leaving dimly lit or darkened houses and mud huts. The lack of electricity and the miserable life of my people in those huts pained me to the core. Even though I was leaving the country indefinitely, I had a glimmer of hope that I would be able to return one day. I told myself that if that happened, I should try to help electrify the country. I plan to do that in this stage of my life. Going forward, my concentration and efforts should focus on electrifying the country, to provide 100% or universal access of electricity to Ethiopia. I think I took a lot of time. I'll stop right here and answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Jonas Kese, for the wonderful presentation. Now we come to the question and answer part of our program. And please be reminded that this forum does not entertain questions or comments of current politics. And on another note, please be reminded that your name will be part of the recording and be broadcast as part of the program. You may type your questions or comments in the chat box, which is at the lower right end, and we'll read them out to Dr. Jonas. To begin the question, because so far there's none, I'll ask my own question. Dr. Jonas, your book is so well documented and contains researched history of Ethiopia and to a limited extent of America. You have used indexing and glossary of words coupled with appendices and much more. Most interesting is the appendix on the notable events in Ethiopia during the social turmoil of 1974-75. My question to you is, do you intend to expand your research and create a reference manual on Ethiopian history? And if I may couple another question, is there a plan for another book? So those are my questions for you.
The answer is yes to both questions. Right now I'm working on another book, but not on Ethiopian history, but on Ethiopia's energy and its future. But in terms of the compendium, the research materials that I have collected, yes, I want to keep updating those and update the autobiography at some point when I have enough material. But yes, I think in this regards, there haven't been many books written on current Ethiopian history. Many of our scholars have not written enough, even though some have. I would encourage anyone who has some story to tell, they should tell it. So that way, collectively, we would have a body of research material and information material for the current and the next generation as well.
Okay, may I ask a question, Fanta?
I guess, yes, you were supposed to be using the chat, but go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thanks for coming, Doctor. And my question is, you told us a nice story, and it seems that it's a good book with nice pictures. Is it in English or in Amharic?
Anta can answer that.
The book is in English, and we have we have a copy of this book. He has already donated one. You'll get to see it when.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because most of the people in the diaspora nowadays are writing books bilingual in English and then their own native language. This book has a lot of history, and I believe someday it will be translated into Amharic. That was my question. What language was written in the book?
Okay, let me say something. Now, the book is written in English, as Franca said, but I plan to. I may not do it myself, but I plan to work with someone who is very proficient in Amharic to get it translated in Amharic in Ethiopia. But right now, it's written in English, and also it's available on Amazon.com if you don't know where to find it for now.
Okay, thank you.
Well.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes more. If there are any questions or comments? Okay, I guess I may have to ask another question until people make up their mind. Since you have dealt in depth about on Ethiopian history in your autobiography, why were you pushed to the extent of doing so much research on Ethiopian history when it is supposed to be an autobiography of yourself? Do you feel you are part of the history? Is that what you're trying to show us? But you also dealt with past history before you were born, and then present history. There is, because you seem to be lost in the middle, like you as Jonas seem to be lost in the book because there's so much history. There's so much history about Ethiopia and America. Go ahead.
Okay, the reason is, well, first, as I said in the introduction, I feel like Ethiopia's history and my story, they are intertwined. How I knew this is, I've come across with many foreigners, especially when I was in Haiti with diplomats from all over the world, asking me about where I'm from. And when I tell them I'm from Ethiopia, in some cases, people have not known where Ethiopia is located and they haven't heard about the country much. So their curiosity is aroused and asked me, where is it? What is its history? How did it begin? How come we didn't know about it? And things like that. So the audience I had in mind when I started writing the book was all the people, not Ethiopians, of course, many of them people who have not known Ethiopian. I keep in mind, I just write answers to those questions that they were asking me. In fact, I started with the era of princes. But Ethiopia's history goes way back, many thousand years, and a lot can be written about Ethiopia. But what I wanted to write about is with the events that could explain where Ethiopia is today. So that's how it's a little bit more voluminous than I expected it to be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any more questions or comments before we close? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the conclusion of our program. I want to thank Dr. Jonas Kufle for graciously accepting my invitation and for his wonderful presentation. I also want to thank you, the participants, for attending. because I know you have other concerns, but you made the time to show up for this program. I also like to thank our own Joan Weeks for tirelessly working to make this program a success. She has sacrificed much of her time for this program on top of her daily responsibilities. And big thanks goes to the staff of the Events Coordination Committee, especially to Darian Rivera and Sonam Shah and the others who are behind the scene, making the virtual technology work smoothly. I hope we will meet again soon on a similar program. I bid you goodbye.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
I just want to thank all of you for organizing this. It's a very good opportunity for me to talk about the book. And also I want to thank someone, Stephanie Curran. She's from the FCC, Frederick Community College, who had been a very great help reading and commenting on my manuscript when I was working on it. And with that, thank you so much. And I will see you next time with another book.